Is the truth grotesque? Pornographic? Does the truth invade our privacy? Does it shatter the private intimacy between ourselves and our fantasies? Lost Highway is commonly seen as the narrative inverse of Mulholland Drive, a glimpse of reality followed by a long, wandering stretch of fantasy. About a third of the way into the film, Fred is brutalized in an interrogation room, suggesting that everything that happened in the film thus far was just his version of the events, which he tells the detective, and more importantly, it's what he tells himself. One of the more famous lines in the film reveals that Fred dislikes cameras because he prefers to remember things his own way.
How I remembered them, not necessarily the way they happened.
The videotapes, therefore, represent the truth, not in the literal sense that somebody in the world of the film actually went out and recorded these videos, but that the footage can be representative of Fred's accurate memories, which are definitely few and far in between. There's actually a scene in the screenplay that didn't make it into the final film, in which the detectives discuss how strange it is that the camera is at such a high angle, and that it's not handheld. This really suggests that the videos are not shot by any physical entity, unless we're really to believe that somebody managed to sneak into Fred and Renee's house with a Steadicam. Later on in the script, there's actually a direction for the camera to move like the camera moves in the videotapes. It corresponds to this shot, that suddenly goes high angle. This perhaps suggests that whoever directed the videotapes also directed this portion of the film, and I'm not talking about David Lynch. Perhaps Fred is the director, since he is constructing his own memories. Fred's real memories are black and white, blurry, and unsurprisingly incomplete. Much like everyone's memories, we can't remember everything, so we construct colorful fantasies to fill in the blanks. This is one possible explanation for the extreme minimalism in Fred's house, as if his mind can't be bothered to recall every piece of furniture and decor. In Fred's dream, Renee says this: and this exact line is repeated on the night of Andy's party.
Fred? Fred, where are you?
Fred is shown disappearing into the darkness, but that's only how he chooses to remember it. What really happened? In the videotape, the POV shot of the hallway followed by the red curtain mirrors Fred's POV in his dream, or at least he thinks it's a dream. Of course, the videotape shows Fred after Renee's murder, and the dream shows him just about to commit the murder. The actual act is missing. It's blacked out by Fred's mind. These three separate scenes are all referring to the same event, the murder, as it actually happened, how Fred chooses to remember it, and as a dream, which mirrors the structure of the entire film. Interestingly, reality occurs in the middle. It's a disruption, a break between subjective memory and fantasy, but also the thing that connects the two together. The blue box in Mulholland Drive carries the same role. When the memory becomes too subjective or delusional, reality breaks in until the whole thing collapses. But then reality itself is too painful, so we escape via fantasy. The mystery man, the wielder of the camera, could be symbolic of the ugly truth. After all, he is the one telling Fred that Alice is actually Renee. His exploding cabin is where Alice abandons Pete, and Pete transforms back into Fred, his true form. I know he has to be invited, but let's remember the beginning of the film, when Fred calls his own house to see if Renee is home. Perhaps this single act of suspicion was enough to invite a search for the truth, an invasive surveillance. The truth lands Fred in jail, an iron cage of guilt and judgment. The prison guards don't do much. It's mostly Fred's own headache that tortures him, his own emotions. To escape them, he has to delve into either fantasy or subjective memory. In fantasy, enigmatic problems like why did my wife lose her attraction to me have externalized solutions. Just kill Mr. Eddie and the problem will be solved. We find out, of course, that that's not true. The fantasy world, much like the fantasy world in Mulholland Drive, is characterized by a fast-moving forward motion. It's like a Hollywood genre film. Because fantasy is a narrative we tell ourselves to solve problems in our reality. The other route, subjective memory, is confusing, circular, and repetitive because Fred can't remember or doesn't want to. It dwells obsessively on the theme of jealousy, scene after scene. I always thought it was odd that Renee is constantly wearing these 6-inch heels in the house, and then I remember, later on in the film, we see Renee in a videotape in some sort of porn scenario, and she has the same shoes on, as well as the same hair and makeup, etc. Perhaps Fred saw this tape of Renee and was so traumatized by it that it completely colored his perception of her, and thus his memories of her, which is why her image is stuck wearing those shoes forever. Renee even tries to remove her makeup. She washes her face, but she still looks exactly the same afterwards. Fred can't remember her any other way. It's not surprising then that the fantasy portion is accompanied by a massive overhaul in color scheme. The famous intercom message is something that joins the world of fantasy and the world of subjective memory, but it's not the only thing. The two worlds constantly collide upon and inform each other. Fred's sax music, Renee's corpse, Renee's photo all intrude upon Pete's consciousness, while the mystery man appears in Fred's otherwise normal world. This interconnectivity between fantasy and memory creates a Mobius strip that attempts to bypass the electric chair, the point of the traumatic reel. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, how are you? When AF Madison said, do a video on Lost Highway, I was like, sure man, why not? But I think inside I was kind of freaking out because I'm about 20 years too late. I feel like anything that can be said about Lost Highway has already been said. So this is what I came up with. If you enjoyed that video, obviously check out Mulholland Drive. And also click here to subscribe because I will be uploading new videos every week.